You're listening to Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hayner.
This is Zoom the TBT of Charge and Hayner. Tonight we have one of our favorite shows of the season. We go ahead and we do a little bit of a fantasy draft and try to see which of our esteemed colleagues and fellow miscreants can pick the best TBT fantasy team. Point of order real quick, gambling is illegal. So this is for fun. There is no money at stake. Right, Charge?
That is correct. We would never want to wager on fantasy TBT. This is fun games.
And we can't because some of the people here are involved. Our first guest tonight, we have Vinny Vitrone. He is the co-GM assistant coach of Friday Beers. Vinny, how you doing tonight?
Feeling good, filled with anxiety this week before TBT, so just trying to get some sleep here.
Yeah, as people might know, we're taping this Sunday night, so the Friday Beers will be on the court very, very soon. Very stressful times as people finalize the rosters. We have Luke. Luke is the winner of the Bitcoin the one year. Luke, how is that Bitcoin treating you?
It's good. The money's been gone for a while now, but still excited to talk about TBT.
Did you spend it on wine, women, and a song, or did you just waste it?
I paid off my car, so went to good use.
No, that's good use.
That's
I would have
awesome.
spent it on wine, women, and a song personally, but whatever. And we got Ty. Ty, just a general sports idiot. Ty, how you doing tonight?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Okay, let's get right in this. So what we're going to do today is we actually had 10 people doing their picks. One already showed up because I can't push the buttons correctly. But the thing is, some of them are here, some are not. So we'll talk about the people that are here. We had 10 people on this committee. Some of them are former TBT types. Some are gamblers. Some are basketball junkies. We'll talk about what we have. But we had a snake draft format, and we had 15 players picked. And today we'll talk about the first 3 rounds of what were selected. And we'll go ahead and get right into this. Charge, you have the first pick. And you have D. Boss to the Friday Beers, formerly of Bayham's Army. First pick, that's the guy who went. Why did you go with D. Boss?
Yeah, so in this fantasy game, obviously, there's going to be some names that may get drafted a little bit lower in the draft because the belief of how far a team is going to go weighs very, very heavily into the draft. So, I need guys that are going to get a minimum 3-4 games in order to maximize the fantasy points. And D-Boss is a guy that kind of fits that role. I truly believe Friday Beers has one of the easiest paths to get to 3 games deep, number one. And D-Boss has just been a fantasy stud for 3 years. This is going to be his 4th year in the TBT, and he's averaging over 30 fantasy points per game, which is just a solid number. And so proud to have D-Boss from Friday Beers with the first pick. I knew Alex or Vinny were going to jump at him if I didn't, so locked him down when I could, and can't wait to see what he does this year.
What I like about picking D-Boss for Friday Beers is they actually have a pretty nice road there. The Friday Beers have a pretty good bracket. So I know Vinny doesn't want to hear this, but we've done some selection shows. And let's just say that Charge and I are both very high on the Beers. So that's probably the last thing that Vinny wants to hear.
That's
What's up?
I've been burned by the old armored athlete a number of times when I go heavy into him, so don't let me down this year. I need y'all.
Okay. So, Vinny, your old buddy Alex, who you used to work with the Playing for Jimmy V, take Chris Massenberg of the defending champ Blue Collar U. Now, that's not your pick, but can you comment on how good Chris Massenberg is? You guys played them last year with the Beers up in Syracuse in a really tough game. What's it like having a scorer like Massenberg in this fantasy draft?
I actually have no recollection of that game. Yeah, I think Alex didn't want to come here tonight because he knows I was going to ridicule him for the person that single-handedly took me out of the tournament last year. But, Buffalo's, they're going to be great again. Their connectivity as a unit, and that's their guy. So can't go wrong there with that pick.
Not to get too far ahead of things, too, but when you start to see these picks, you're going to very much notice that the defending champs are very well presented in the first 3 rounds of this. Vinny, you got a pick coming up, and let's see what you went with. And keep in mind, Vinny, I might have a little inside information because he actually is attached to Friday Beers, and he went with Gabe York of his own team, the Friday Beers. So first of all, Vinny, what's it like telling your rest of your players you drafted one and not them? Is that going to make the locker room a little tense?
No, I did text Gabe on the side, though, sent him a screenshot and said, you were my first pick, so you know what to do. Because I need some bragging rights out here. But, this is a guy that is perfectly built for TBT, in my opinion, with the way the game is played. And he was in the NBA this year. And, if anyone follows the G League at all, as Charge I know does, he could attest to how much of a killer this guy has been.
Yeah, last year, amazing run.
So,
Well, definitely. So this is your top scorers on Friday Beers have already come off the board with 2 of the top 3 picks. So we're kind of keeping it moving. Now, Scott is not here, so we'll talk a little bit. John Elmore, however, Charge, John Elmore with a revamped and reloaded. Heard that. Again, a guy that could have swung the NBA title to the Heat if they had just played him. A great pick and roll scorer with Ja'Cory. How important is John Elmore to what Herd that's trying to do?
Yeah, obviously he's the go-to guy, and Scott, he's the only guy we don't know in this group of 10. Obviously, we solicited, anyone wants to join, but if you follow him on Twitter, he's not your average hoop fan, and he's kind of shown it with his expertise online and in his draft. And John Elmore has been the top fantasy scorer over the past 2 years at over 38 points per game, which is just ridiculous. And with the revamped Herd That squad, and obviously everything's gonna run through John, whether he's scoring or facilitating. It's the right pick in this spot if you truly believe Herd That's going to go deep. Tough West Virginia bracket, so there's some risk there, but solid first pick.
Now, Ty, let's get you involved a little in the conversation before your picks. You're talking about going deep, and you're familiar with the bracket. West Virginia's a complete bloodbath, some really high-quality teams there. No one doubts John Elmore's abilities, and actually they are my pick to win that region. But it's very much in doubt. There are at least 4 or 5 teams that can win that region. Is this the first risky pick as far as how deep they can go? Because there's no doubt the Herd That can get to Philly. But there's also no doubt they might go in the first round to a very tough Zoo crew. Like, is this the first time you're seeing a player that might not get out of even the first round? Is that a concern that's early in the draft?
Not to spoil, but I have heard that guy on my team, so I'm not gonna say it's a risky pick. I think they've got a floor of probably 3 games. John's got a really high floor.
You just said the floor of 3 games, as in you definitely think they're making the regional final as a floor.
Yeah, he is one of the Herd That's biggest fans. He is all. I actually wore my Herd That shirt today because of how strong they came out in the first round. But yeah, Ty's so high on Herd That. So
you gotta remember, I drafted Ott last year.
Okay. And that was probably, even though you didn't draft him early, one would hope, obviously.
Later pickup, but
Luke, what do you think? Is Ty right to be confident there?
I'm a Pitt alum, so I got to go with the Zoo crew.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
There we go. There you go.
You're solid too.
You're a Pitt alum. I believe that means you drive a truck now. Interesting. Okay. Luke, however, went with Matt Morgan of Boeheim's Army. So now we have a little bit of a competition about the Syracuse team. Matt Morgan's a really interesting pick. There's bigger names in that squad, but at the same time, Matt Morgan's a very steady scorer and ball handler. So why did you pick Morgan out of a loaded and diverse Boeheim's Army squad?
Yeah, I just thought he was going to be the best fantasy player. I was looking at the stats from last year. It was like 25-5 almost. I think he had 20 a game in France League this past year. And that was my probably problem last year. I went with too many wings, probably too many guys who were secondary ball handlers. So I just wanted to go out and get the one guy who I thought's going to have the ball in his hands the most. And then on top of that, I think they're probably the best team in the region, maybe the best team in the bracket. So hoping to get at least 3 games. We'll see if they can beat Buffalo, get 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, I mean, that Buffalo final, if they are able to get past Herd, which they weren't able to do last year, would be a complete, that could be a pre-championship game. Now, Vinny, you're with the Bears, who are always and the former Armored athlete, who are always have a lot of really good players and have to actually share the ball. If you look at Boeheim's roster, they're really good. Unlike John Elmore, who is the straw that stirs the drink, there's a lot of weapons on Boeheim's Army. Are they too diverse to make Matt Morgan a top pick in this, or is Luke onto something here?
So actually, Boeheim's Army and teams that are that good, it scares me in situations like this, a format like this, because a very good player could very well fall out of the rotation. One thing, when you watch these games, especially when you're in them, these games go so quick, and you could watch a bunch of games and you could see how a guy that is a big name that he might have went off in the first game or the second game, how he just falls out of the rotation for that game, whether it's a matchup or just, you're down a little bit and your team goes on a run and the game's quick and you don't want to, kill the momentum. So you just stick with it. But, Matt's a very good player. I don't think he's going to have a problem staying on the floor.
I mean, Matt's a great player. I just do wonder if all the scoring punch Boeheim's has will they be sort of like a spread attack and will it hurt the overall numbers? This is fancy. No one doubts Matt Morgan's quality as a leader or a player. It's an interesting thing to think about. I mean, I think he's a great player. It's not a bad pick. Ty, Ja'Cory Williams, you didn't spoil anything. You've got probably one of the premier finishers in this tournament. Decent mid-range score, great at the rack. Will be deadly in a John Elmore Williams pick and roll. Great player, performed in this. So, like, why'd you pick him here? I think it's a great pick, by the way. But like, what was the logic behind it?
Again, like I said, personally, I think they've got a floor of 3 games this year. I don't think West Virginia has their best team this year. I think this is going to be the year Hurd gets them. I think Ja'Cory is like a 19-7 guy in his career in TBT. So, that's very solid numbers. And the last year when they had John and Ja'Cory together, they took that Heartfire Team 23, probably should have beat them. And that team ended up going to the title. So I think they got them 2 back together this year. They're due for a deep run.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I think they're a great team. I have them picking the winning region. So I actually think that they will probably make 3-4 games, at least, maybe even 5 or 6, who knows? But I think the floor is interesting when they have a very dangerous Zookers. It's a really interesting logic here that is a floor. That's just interesting to me. But yeah, I mean, you can't really argue with the quality of Ja'Cory. Jacob went with Wes Clark. So Wes Clark, you're a Buffalo guy. Wes Clark, is there a tougher small guard? Not a better small guard, but a tougher small guard in this tournament than Wes Clark?
No, yeah, I mean, he's just gone out there and fought the past couple of years, really led that team, put him on his back. And I do know that Jake is Jacob's Luke's brother, and they're both from Western New York, so big Buffalo fans as well. So, it didn't surprise me to see him go Wes Clark here at this point. You can't argue with that University of Buffalo or Blue Collar U is going to be one of the favorites to win it. And this is what really makes this fantasy league interesting is because when you get that Boeheims and UB matchup, that's where things are going to separate. So if you pick the right end of that, you're feeling great. But Wes Clark, obviously, solid pick based on history and what UB's expected to do. Once again, they've been to the finals and won the whole thing. So I mean, just impressive run by those guys.
It's interesting too. You talk about that because talk about like that Syracuse alum, Buffalo alum, blue collar versus Boeheims Army. And what's interesting to me is I definitely think that that's going to be a great matchup. I personally think Boeheims wins it, but I wouldn't be surprised either way. But I think the nerd team already having gotten Boeheims once and proving they can makes a much more interesting challenge than anything that the blue collar U is going to face. I mean, Big Five's a decent squad. So is the Roadie away. So is the Commonwealth. But I think they have a much easier path to that regional final than Syracuse is going to have with Team Gibson and then likely the nerd team. So I think I fully think that Boeheims Army actually wins a game against Blue Collar, but like I think it's more likely Blue Collar even gets to the game. So it's a really interesting logic about how you have to get a team that's going to go deep. Now, Luke Jacobs, your brother?
Yeah.
So you should talk shit about it. Like, is this a good pick or is your brother a moron? Like, what's the deal?
I think it's a good pick. I don't think Wes Clark's ever lost a game in the TBT. I think he was hurt that one game they lost to Team 23 the first year. And like Charge said, he growing up in Western New York, had some connections to UB with assistant coaches when he was there. I think he's just a big Wes Clark fan and a bucket getter for sure. That pull-up jump shot, gets to the rim, can finish. So,
and again, like he's a two-way guard too. Like he's small, but he plays much bigger than he is. So you don't have to like worry about setting him in on defense. You don't have to worry about hiding him. He can play all the minutes if you need to because he don't have to hide him on defense either because he's an aggressive, physical small guard. All right, so Corey went with Marcus Keene. Ty, there's no problems getting Marcus Keene. Like Marcus Keene's a guy who just makes shots. Like that's an easy pick. The question becomes can they get past ALS? That's really the only question here, right?
Yeah, that's definitely a big question. That's probably going to be one of the games of the tournament. It's a bummer that we got to see it so early, but personally, kind of don't see him getting by ALS, as you'll see with the rest of my squad. But like you said, I can't go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Keene is a known shot maker. He's a one-man offense to himself. Vinny, do you think it should be a concern they're going to have to split the ball up with him, Rice, and Jones, or is there going to be plenty of scoring to go around?
Yeah, and as well as the man you didn't name, Eugene German, who
I did not name him. That's correct.
That might be he's just as potent as the other three that you named, but one thing Clapper got on his side that, some people might not have is God. So, having that in your corner, I think it's all going to work out.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. All right. So Walt went with Nick Perkins. Now, Nick Perkins is now a Summer League legend. If anybody watched the NBA Summer League, He got thrown out with 2 technicals in 1 minute of play for the Brooklyn Nets. So first of all, that's a wonderful event. And it just shows his competitive fire. He probably will not be sticking with the Nets now, obviously, but he's obviously a TBT beast and an overseas, very elite overseas player, not to put a pun on there. So let me see. Let's go with Luke. Luke, that's, again, an easy pick. You're a Western New York guy. How dominant is Nick Perkins? Is he the best center in TBT?
Good question. I don't know if I would even call him a center because he spreads the floor so well. He's like just a matchup nightmare. Give it to him on the block. He's got the fadeaway left-handed jumper. He hits threes. I've kind of just the way the brackets have been. I feel like I've been rooting against blue collar the last couple of years, and it's tough because he's just always making shot after shot after shot. And like you said, he's ready to fight pretty much anybody. When he scored up with Eric Griffin, I knew somebody you don't want to mess around with. It seems like he's not changing too. So
yeah, because scoring up with Eric Griffin is not something that anybody else wants to do besides because Griffin in his own right is also a beast.
Two big guys.
What's crazy is Nick Perkins. We've interviewed him for the show before. He could not be nicer off the court, which is what you want a basketball player: a complete gentleman off the court and a complete just beast on the court. So speaking of the guy like Eric Griffin, who you have experience with, Vinny, Nick Perkins, is he just that much of a matchup problem?
Yeah, he does everything, man. He's a nightmare. I'm making his scouting report last year, and it's just like good luck at that point because if he touches the ball down there, it's 2 points or a foul at that point. But
pretty much,
guy like that, you have to mix it up. You got to throw a couple guys at him, double him. You got to try and take him out of rhythm early because if he gets going, then if he makes a couple threes, it's a long night for you.
Definitely. I mean, a guy who can play inside out really makes you wonder if he very much probably is the best center of TBT. Another name might come up later we'll get to, though, who could be in the running for that. Brian went with QJ Peterson. Charge, leader of the Gutter Cats, always a good squad. Peterson, is he going to be able to stand out on a very deep and very Gutter Cat attack?
Yeah, I think he's going to play a big role, and obviously coming off a nice, successful summer league run with the Knicks. Read some good articles on him today, but obviously it's kind of like the Marcus Keene, lacks size, but does everything else right. Brings the energy, can score, and without Tyrese Rice being over there this year, he'll probably be one of the guys. And we'll talk about another one of the Gutter guys here shortly, but he'll be the focal point, one of the feature guys in this offense. So, talking with Brian, we think Gutter Cat Gang's another one of those teams that, kind of like the Bears has a easy kind of route to 3 games. And so, you can't go wrong with this. He'll definitely pull a load for him.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that route to 3 games thing because, and no disrespect to the North or the Maryland alums, the Shell Shock, or the other team, Gatorverse, I don't really see any of them giving Gutter Cats a huge problem. So I think, talk about a floor being 3 games. I'm much more confident in their floor being 3 games than I am for Herd's. Even though I think Herd actually goes further, I think they'll have a harder time getting there, if that makes sense. Okay, this is our first round. I mean, that's a pretty elite bunch of ballers. A lot of ball handlers, couple bigs here, but a lot of primary ball handlers, primary scorers. Charge, anybody you're really surprised to see in the first round?
I mean, it's really, really hard to say, but I'm just not confident in that ALS and sideline cancer game, so to say. I steered clear of both of those teams the best I could. I'll get something later in the draft, but I think the risk of that Marcus Keene one is just going to be really, really tough. If you only get 2 games out of a first round pick, you're toast. That's not going to work real well. The other thing interesting this year is we only had 6 guys last year, 10 this year, so I think Walt had 3 blue collar guys on his own team last year, and this year with 10, you got 3 taken in the first round. So that's an interesting dynamic. But I just steered clear of sideline and ALS, just too high risk for me. I want to get something a little more consistent. I think because we're all using that kind of 3 game kind of territory as a valuable asset to your team, and too risky for me, so I avoided it.
Ty, I want to stick with you for a second. Looking and talking about the road to games and road to floors of wins, is that 2-3 in West Virginia? Is that sideline ALS? Is that the most pivotal second round game, you think? Or is there another game you think might be even more pivotal?
Yeah, that's probably the one I've got started at this point. If we went back to first round games, I think maybe Eberline and Jackson. But if we're looking second, then that's probably the one.
Yeah, that Eberline Jackson one has a lot to do. And so, for example, saying with that one more saying, we'll go to the next round. But Luke, talking about the 3 Eberline, the 6 Jackson in Louisville. First of all, can I ask you a question just out of the blue? And you feel free to answer this anything you want. Do you trust the Ville? Do you think they're really there to stay?
Yeah, I do. I like the backcourt a lot with Smith and Siva.
Okay.
So I mean, from a fantasy perspective, I would think they're going to play at least 3 games, or at least 2, probably 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
For a bracket perspective, I think they're probably. I like the teams with the home court. I just see like Wichita State doing so well year after year. Syracuse has done well, historically not great last year, but it is something to have. The home court fans will see what it's like in Louisville.
Definitely. It is a first-time team, though. I really have my doubts about Louisville, not because they're not good. And Russ was made for this event, but I do wonder about their age and relative lack of TBT experience. So we'll see. I mean, I think that mentioning the Eberline Jackson game will come up a lot, I think, in a later round of the draft. Okay, let's get to round 2. Now, it's a snake draft, so we're going to flip the order. So we're going to start with Brian, who's not here. But Brian went with John Roberson, Air Raiders. Charge, do you like this pick?
I think a little too early at this stage of the game. No debating how good John Roberson's going to be, but that Air Raiders team is going to be really, really good. They are going to go deep, but Brian was obviously looking at, you can see the jersey they have on there with the armored athlete. And so obviously he's got a little home court bias to this guy. And I think a good pick because I truly think Air Raiders is going to go deep. I think there's a couple teams that we have 7 guys drafted from each team, and Air Raiders has 1. So I think he's going to end up producing good value, but I just think a smidge early in the second round.
Anybody with me who actually doesn't trust the Air Raiders, or is it just me? Raise your hand if you don't trust the Air Raiders. It's just me here. Anybody? Well, screw all of you.
The way the rest of Lubbock's kind of shaking out, I was a little leery about Air Raiders initially, but the way it's starting to shake out now, some player movements, it's just not as confident as I thought.
Yeah, it's interesting. I really think that, I think the Austin Zone team looks pretty solid. Again, they're a first-year alumni team. I think the Chandra Jones thing of actually being kind of let go from Air Raiders provides a great deal of motivation. Also, Vinny, you're a big Scott Banford fan, correct?
Yeah, Scott Banford is that guy. And if he could get out of that first game, he's one of my that's my sleeper pick later on in the draft. So I'm rooting for him, even though Tariq Owens is my guy over there for the Air Raiders. So I'm rooting for him as well. Some of these regions that may not look, as top-heavy or star-studded on paper, usually those turn out to be the more fun games as well, especially early on.
I agree. And plus, there's plenty of fun things to do in Lubbock in case you get eliminated. I think you can definitely go to the Sizzler. You can go to the Outback Steakhouse. All sorts of fun things. Okay, Walt went with Lamont Turner. Everybody knows, looking at that jersey, I don't know a lot about Lamont Turner, but I know he played for Tennessee, so screw him. Ty, what do you think? Is this a good pick for the Buccaneers?
Feels a little bit early to me, but maybe he steps into that Bradford role usage-wise, and it could pay off. But again, I think we're 2 early picks with the first 2 here.
Yeah, I mean, plus having a Tennessee player. Well, first of all, if you have a Tennessee player, they've never made a Final Four. Tennessee's never made a Final Four. I mention that as often as I can. In their entire basketball history, they have made Elite Eights. They have never, and I repeat, never made a Final Four. So you have to wonder about getting a guy from a college who doesn't even know how to win at the college level. Always makes it kind of interesting to me. But yeah, you mentioned the Bradford role. It's pretty interesting. So there are minutes at guard to be had because Bradford's playing the underdogs, which makes it a very interesting thing. And there's no guarantee they get past Fort Wayne. I mean, that's the thing. Is They got a very, very tough first-round matchup. So if you're going this early at a team that might have a floor of literally 1 game, it seems to be an interesting pick to me.
This is the boldest pick, I think, in the first 2 rounds. I think this one is wobbly as well.
Yeah. And that's not saying that Turner's not good. Turner's a great player. I'm saying because of circumstance. Corey went with Scoochie Smith. Charge, you can tell about this guy. I know you're a fan. What do you think of this pick?
Obviously, he played his first TBT last year after teasing for so many years, and I mean, just really performed well out there on the court. Was the go-to guy for Red Scare as you'd expect him to be. I think everyone expects Red Scare. Not everyone on this call, but at least get 3 games in, maybe a 4th. We'll see how that goes. But I think this is a solid pick. A good team. You can't even use the word guaranteed in TBT, but we will. They're at home. It's going to be a great game and going to be a great regional matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Dayton's got a pretty interesting matchup because, they've got in the first round India Rising, who's a quality team, but, they'll probably win with the whole court behind them. And they'll have Carmen's crew playing Overtime Elite, which just had the honor of having the Thompson twins. Again, the first TBT players to be drafted in the NBA draft, which is a wild experience for them. At TBT, going from 4 and 5 NBA draft is a great story. But at the same time, they'll probably win that second round game, leaving them a very difficult regional final with probably the Friday beers. So, Vinny, have you already started scouting Scoochie Smith?
One game at a time. I'm locked in on Athletics Miami right now. If that does turn out to be the plan, I'll be scared and having nightmares of Scoochie Smith up until game time.
So when Vinny says he's not preparing for that team already, that's called a lie. That's called actually being honest. He's already got a full scouting report. Scoochie Smith. You can't bullshit a bullshitter, my man. Yeah. Okay, so Jake went with Russ Smith. Okay, I will take this one. I hate Louisville. I'm a Memphis fan. I despise Louisville. The 2-time national champion. We don't mention a third because they got taken away, so screw them. I hate everything about them. My partner's first major gift to me was tickets to a Louisville game, and she's embarrassed. I spent the entire game yelling at the coach. May he rest in peace. But having said all of that, Russ Smith was made for this event. He was genetically designed to play in TBT. He's a scoring guard. He's fearless. He has a hair trigger shot, and he will shoot until he fucking makes a shot. So I don't like Louisville, but I love Russ Smith. And I can't think of a first-year TBT player because I believe he's never played this before, correct? I think we're in for a treat. I think they're going to have a lot of fun with Russ Smith. Charge, he was just made for this, right?
Yeah, he's just put up some crazy numbers. I've seen him put up 60+ in the G League, and overseas they just put insane totals up on the scoreboard. And yeah, as long as that team comes out and wins a couple games, but they don't have any guarantees. You're looking at War Ready. Obviously, everyone thinks they're going to roll over him, but War Ready's not going to be a layup. And then you go into the winner of Jackson and Eberline, and that's a tough game too. So as long as DeVille, everyone shows up. This time of year, you're seeing it every day. Somebody's dropping off the roster. So if their whole team shows up, they're going to be good. But it's a bumpy path.
I'm calling a shot too. I think War Ready knocks him out in the first round. I'm calling it right now. I've called on the show before. I'm calling it right now. I just think
to Matt.
I told Matt already. I called it, which Matt's already mad at me too because he's like, "Why are you telling me this? I don't want to be the favorite." I'm like, I'm the only person saying this. Don't worry. Everybody else thinks you're being snapped.
Yeah, everyone else you're going to get railed.
Yeah. So I think they'll be fine. But I think they'll go as far as Russ Smith carries them. And Russ Smith, as we know, can carry a team pretty far. Okay, Ty. Whoops. Okay, we're just going to skip ahead a little bit.
Just keep clicking.
Yeah, well, it's a problem with the keyboard sometimes. Ty, you have Jalen Barford talking about, again, underdogs. Now, we talked about you think the Herd has a floor of 3 games, which I think is – I agree they're going to win at least 3 games, but I think floor is a weird term. We have to admit, Jalen Barford's great, and the underdogs could literally get to Philly, but their floor is 1 game, correct?
No, their floor is definitely 1 game, so this is a bit of a riskier pick. But you look at Barford, he's 20, 21 points a game, and I think 11 career TBT games. So you kind of know what you're going to get with him, even if it's that 1 game. You're going to get a big game. I think, was it the Wichita episode you were talking about the JUCO guys and how some D3 schools play their JV teams play JUCOs and stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
So I played NAIA ball, and we had the same sort of setup. And so I actually played against Jalen Barford back in the day.
How'd it go?
About like you described it on the Wichita podcast. I think he did a 360 layup around one of my boys, and yeah, it was bad.
I was reading on Twitter, somebody talked about how he was playing a professional player when he was in high school. And the guy went by him so fast, he went straight to the financial aid office to start filling out academic scholarship paperwork. He was like, the hell with this. Obviously, this is not what I'll be doing with my time. Yeah, Barford's an incredible player. Matt and Jake will hate this from Eberline, so they're friends of ours. But I think the underdogs get past Eberline, as good as Eberline is. I think Barford and Bradford. I see Charge shaking his head. Do you think it's Eberline?
I've kind of turned on this one. I think Barford and Bradford are going to be fantastic, but you got Cooper and AJ Slaughter, some guys like that over at Eberline. So it should be really interesting. But this is just another one. I'm a little more risk adverse, and I mean it's a 50-50 coin toss on this game, and so I wasn't taking a chance this early. But high risk, high reward, and Ty's willing to put it out there.
Okay, yeah, I mean he's a great player, so we'll see what happens. Okay, Luke, Connor Frankamp, that full head of hair, that jump shot, what a great player. Luke, Connor, that's a pretty safe pick, actually, because they're probably good for at least a couple games. As much as a Memphis fan, I hate to admit that. They're probably going to get 1 or 2 at least. Easy pick, lead scorer for a home team. Just don't overthink it.
That was my thought process. Low risk. Looking at the stats, I mean, he has the ball in his hands. It seems like every year they win a couple of games every year. He hits threes at a high clip, and he's just – I don't know. They also seem to get good whistles there in Wichita, so hopefully that'll continue.
Sweep the leg. Sweep the leg. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping they lose in the second round. So as a Memphis fan, I'm hoping the Beale Street boys can make that happen. But I think losing Vinny's buddy Tyler Stone really hurts them on the front court. As good as Will Coleman is, they could have used him a lot. So I think the Aftershocks are probably good for at least 2, and then we'll see what comes from there. That's a pretty makeable thing, and they obviously, as Luke said, get some whistles that are home cooked. Scott, why is this okay? Stop doing that. Okay, Mike Dahm. Scott is not here today, but Mike Dahm's a great player. Obviously, he's a stretch 4. He'll see a lot of open looks when he's surrounded by Rice and he's surrounded by Keene, German, and Jones. So I got guards all around him, which you have to cover, which means if he comes out there, they play 5 out, get some shots. But he is getting married this year, which is one of those guys. Is he going to be able to make it? Because, the missus may not let him play. I mean, he's getting married this summer, so it could be an issue. How much charge would Mike Dahm, if he's able to show, though, raise the ceiling of an already potent sideline cancer offense?
Yeah, to be honest with you, fantasy-wise, if sideline sneaks by, I mean, it's just a huge pickup for Scott. But I still think when you start to, compare all these guys over to the other side with Challenge ALS, I mean, this is still a toss-up game. I don't think Dom's going to, be the deciding factor to flip this thing and guarantee a sideline victory by any stretch. But, if he's there and sideline wins, and it's looking like a great pick once again.
Yeah, definitely. He's a great player and already loaded squad. I mean, I think of sideline, I always wonder, same thing I asked about, for example, the Boeheim's team is there's one ball. Will there be enough points to go around, too? Is an open question in a fantasy format. Vinny, D'Angelo Harrison, talk to me. The Program for Autism. Nice pick.
Sure was.
Yeah, I don't think he's on the roster as of today. So,
Did you sub one in? I mean, so I went with the graphics of the original draft, and I know there's some sub-ins. Is that still being discussed?
Yeah, no, I think I did replace him. I've already had to replace 1 or 2 here, so I forget who I replaced them with.
But you got Freeman and Jordan Varnado.
Okay, yeah.
So one of those two guys
I
replaced
replaced him with Deshaun Freeman, who, being he was my college roommate, I had no choice but to put him on the team because I didn't want to have that discussion if he somehow stumbled upon this podcast here.
I wonder what being a college roommate with Vinny Vitrone was like. That just sounds that just sounds hellish, man.
One day when that gets published in book format, you can pick that up on Amazon.
Should be interesting. But
as of today, I have a career that I need to somehow manage to hold on to.
Yeah. My ears barely fit through the door. Life story of Vinny Vitrone. That'll be great, man. I can't wait to pick that up. Available at bookstores everywhere.
But that being said, D'Angelo Harrison is someone I hope one day does play in this event because
you're a St. John's scout.
Not anymore so much, but yeah, he's just a guy that, like a Russ Smith, he's a ball dominant guard, a Marcus Keene type that could just fill it up. He's been doing it for years at a very high level. So
yeah, I thought it's worth mentioning on this show, talking about the fantasy stuff, is rosters are in flux because summer league deals happen. A lot of players, their agents whisper in the ear. So you always have some roster turnover. Charge, is this more than usual you're seeing?
I don't have the exact number, but it just feels like it. We were talking about that today, and this what makes fantasy draft hard to do. We've done it online last year, and it just kind of over the course of several days versus doing it live. Like if we did it tonight during this podcast, we would have had a little more information. But people got day jobs, hard to coordinate 10 folks. So these things are going to happen, and I think some of it, like this one, don't know the case. Some of it, I think teams just straight up lie about the players that they're going to have on their team just for publicity and summer league you mentioned. But yeah, this one's tough, and it's part of it. So we do have a lot of subbing going on as we speak here. My team's had its fair share.
I think next year we should just announce a team that has Tyreek Evans and Derrick Rose and see what happens. Just see
we would get in for sure. We would be in.
Not even call them. Just say they're on the team. Okay,
which has happened before the TBT.
Okay, Alex, Samaj Christian. Since Alex is in here, Vinny, again, you're one of his good friends. You want to talk about the quality of pick this is for the Zip 'em Up player?
Samaj Christian is a great player, great pick. Alex Newman's a great man. Got nothing bad to say about him. But, so the winner of that Xavier region, I believe, meets the winner of my region in that fourth game. So, the ceiling of that would probably only be 3-4 games there. So
yeah, I like the way you're thinking.
This is like sideline ALS though. So when you get TMT versus Zip 'em Up in round 2, that's just insane. Absolutely brutal.
Who's in a prospective TMT Zip matchup? Who's got Zip? Who's got money? Interesting. Okay, Luke, why money? Just too many shooters?
Yeah, I just think they're better.
Okay, fair. Concise as always. I like it. All right, Charge. Go ahead.
I'll talk more about it here in the third round, but
yeah, I think you will. I think I saw your picks. You'll definitely come with that. Charge. Chris Jones. Talk to us about why you picked up Chris Jones.
Yeah, no, I feel really good about Chris Jones. Anytime you can pick up a EuroLeague guard and have him ready to go, with Tyrese Rice moving over from Gutter Cat Gang, I think you're going to have a two-headed monster here with Chris Jones and QJ Peterson just loading up the stat sheets. I may have went a little bit early here. I mean, this draft was, like I said, everyone drafted and did their research. Some of the top guys were going there, so I planned on waiting to maybe 4 or 5 to grab them, and went a little bit early here, but feel great about it. Once again, Gutter Cat, 3 games all day long, and it's going to be a good value pick for me.
I mean, it's definitely going to be on what's left of Team Hines, a major player. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit more in this round. Charge, obviously, who was the stretch pick here? So we talked about a couple of them. Who was the kind of too early pick?
Yeah, I mean, all the guys were solid, but I think the two that stand out is obviously they both kind of run in that same circle as Lamont Turner and Jalen Barford are just both 50-50 games. Obviously, Garrett Well and Fort Wayne champs. I'll be pulling for those guys as always, but I mean, they're a legit team, so I think you're 50-50 there, and I think over on the other side that Jackson and Eberline game's 50-50. So those two kind of, I think, are the highest risk in this round.
Okay. We got one more round we're going to discuss. There were actually 15 rounds, but we're not going to bore everybody with doing every damn round. The show would be 15 hours long. So, Charge, your last pick we're going to discuss in depth. We're going to start round 3 against Snake format. You get the first pick of the third round, and you went with Devin Dotson. So, talk about that one. I think that one's already kind of open, right?
Yeah. So this is where my team really starts to go downhill, and I think on paper, everybody was like, man, Mass Street, they are going to go to the finals. This team is loaded. There's no way they lose. The Morris brothers aren't going to come in soft. And so it was like a bug in one of those bug lights. Nobody was taking the Mass Street guys, and I should have known better. And then it just came back and bit me. So I took Dotson in the third round. I couldn't decide who to go with on that team, and so when in doubt, you draft a charge guy, and so here I am in the third round, losing Dotson. I also lost Selden later in the pick, who was I think my 6th or 7th round pick. So and you see everything online lately. Mass Street's just dropping guys, adding guys. I don't even think they know who's showing up to the game next week. So yeah, I got a little bit burned here Dotson. And the crazy thing is when you have 10 guys and 150 guys already gone and you got to sub out, I am pivoting quickly to in the lab, which is a little bit of a stretch. So, you got to put something there. So I picked up Cameron Young and JD Miller from in the lab, and sounds risky, of course, but when you got to replace Dotson and Seldon. But I think, which I told you this from the beginning, they're going to crush HBCU. That's not even a matchup. Then you're going to move on to Bleed Green, who is good, but I don't think they are upper echelon this year. They lost a couple guys. Shorter's not playing with them. And so I'm taking a calculated risk that somehow in the lab can play 3 games in TBT 2023. Quit laughing, Hayner, and tell me why you think I'm crazy.
Well, I just want to know, were you at the White House? Were you the one that dropped the cocaine? That's what I'm wondering. When you say in the lab, I mean, I almost feel line from the chat. Yeah, I'm about to say, I think you mean in the meth lab.
Cam Young, JD Miller, Pishon, Zach Henry. Friga's going to go for 90 points, for God's sakes. I mean, you see the guy on YouTube and all that, so 90 points. So
we're just going to mute Charge. I'm tired of hearing this bullshit. We're going to mute him for a second. I don't use this often, but we just had to mute Charge, so I'm not listening to that nonsense anymore. Love you, Charge. You're back on. We're gonna have to cut your mic for just a second there.
Yeah, just move on. I'm still mourning this pick in the whole Matt Street debacle. So just move
well,
on.
Reg has a move now. Reg has a move. Okay. Stop it. Okay. Yeah, it's always funny with these damn graphics. Okay, Alex went with Kareem Cantor, another zip-em-up player. Again, a risky player, but a solid power forward who has an outside stroke. Vinny, we're going to keep asking you to ask for your buddy Alex. This is a good pick, though, right? Better than Charges, at least, correct?
Yeah, I'll say that. I'll give him that one.
At the time, Dotson looked great, though. Don't tell me that.
No, but yeah, again, zip them up. I like the home team. So anytime you get a chance to get a starter on a home team, I think it's a solid pick. He's been a good player for a while now, so I'm not mad at it. Charge. Yeah, I don't know if he's been hanging out with Walter White too much, but he's in a different lab, man. I don't know.
That's why we play the games. That's why
we play the games. Okay, Vinny, you have Chino Anaku. That's a pretty good pick. I mean, some size, home team. What are you thinking there?
Yeah, so Chinanu Anawaku, if it's not Nick Perkins, on paper, this is my guy who I think is the best center in TBT. But a couple things I would be saying here is, one, with Russ Smith and Peyton Siva, that means there's going to be a lot of rebounding that he could do on the offensive glass from some wild shots, possibly. And secondly, I told Matt Michelle this, in order to beat Louisville at home in that first game or any game while they're in Louisville, they would probably have to win that game by 15, because if it's under 10 points, I think the Whistles are going to be trying to get the ticket sales for the next few days.
Yeah, the gate does matter. Luke, best center. Would someone else like a word? I think there's another player who would really like a word in this.
Big Keith Clanton.
Yeah, I think Keith Clanton wants a word with you, Vinny.
It's a bucket down on the block.
I'll say this: if Keith Clanton does, if he's in a room with me and he does want a word, he wins that. I'm not gonna, unless I got a security with me, he's good. He got that. He's right. I'm wrong. I'm open to that.
Yeah, I really don't like Vinny much today, but I do like this pick.
I like this pick too.
I think it's a solid pick.
I mean, when you
got a guy who still does the free throws, granny style, so you can't discount a guy like that.
Plus, as he said, a guy like Russ is going to have a lot of rebounds go get, because as good as he is, he's got a quick trigger. So Russ will score 40 points on likely 40 shots. So there will be some rebounds to be had. Okay, Scott went with stop doing this. Okay, Jameel Wilson of the Boeheim's Army Golden Eagles. I'll take this one. Jameel Wilson's a great two-way player, really solid scorer. Boeheim's Army continues their time-honored tradition of just pilfering other teams' players. Golden Eagles have the year off. They're trying to remix, so some of their players are going to be the new Syracuse alums. Very common thing. My only concern about them, again, in a fantasy format, is they're so deep. Is there enough points to go around? I think Boeheim's Army is my current pick. I have the right to change my mind. They're current pick to win the whole thing. I think they're just too deep. So I don't think they're going to star from a fantasy perspective, but I definitely think they will star from an actual on the court perspective. Luke, Jordan Crawford, that's obviously why you're picking against Zip 'em Up. Talk to us about how good the diminutive scoring guard is for the money team.
It's fantastic. It seems like, again, common theme with my guys, but they just always have the ball every time I'm watching their games. He's dribbling around, seems to be dribbling around the baseline, pulls it back out, but I think he'll get a lot of assists. And I just like the team in general. I think adding Ellaby is big this year. Booker was really good last year. Ledbetter always plays well in this tournament, so I think they're going to make a deep run. A little nervous that you're playing against Xavier, but I think the money team is going to be. I think they could make. I think they'll make it. I think they have a good chance of making it to Philly. I guess I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean they're a pretty good squad. It's a makeable bracket because I think there's a lot of good teams in that bracket, but it's one of the brackets where like I don't think any of them are so dominant they're an obvious winner. So there's like at least 5 teams that can walk out of there. So I completely think that Jordan Crawford and TMT could be a pretty good pick here. And I think because he's a lead scorer on a team that's going to get at least 2 games probably, this isn't a bad pick here at all. Ty, Marvell Harris. So you've obviously tipped your hand about what you think about sideline. Talk about why Marvell Harris is a good pick here.
So this might be a hot take, but I kind of think Marvell fits that roster better than Dominique Jones did.
I don't think that's a particularly hot take, actually.
And then
all respect to
Marvell,
Jones is a great player. Jones is a great player.
Right, yeah, for sure. It's 1A, 1B type situation. Marvell's been 21.5 points the last 3 TBTs, which is about 8 games. It's been 50, 40, 90 the last 2 years, so he does it efficiently. And ALS or TNT, they put up points. I think TNT had 5 guys average 14 points a game last year, so they're going to spread it around and put up numbers.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really great pick, actually. I mean, it's a high risk pick because it could lose the sideline, but I really think they're going to be okay in the first round. Dog Talk is a first-time alumni team. As good as Chris Wright is, he was in the finals last year with Program for Autism Army, but I think this is a pretty good pick, and I think it's a pretty smart one. Jake, stop. Whoa. Trigger finger. Okay, Dominique Jones, speak of the devil. Charge, he's a great player. How's he fit into an already loaded sideline team?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the question mark, obviously. If we had the answers to that, and we'd all be feeling real good right now. But, yeah, on numbers, on paper, history, perfect pick right here. It's just who do you believe is going to win this game? So you look at, number 6, 7 in the third round. One of those guys is going to add no fantasy value to you. And so great pick, but I just steered clear.
Fair enough. Corey went with Stephon Moody. Who wants to take this one? He's a great player, but who wants to go with Moody, the former Ole Miss player? Oh, Vinny wants. Okay, Vinny, talk to us about Stephon Moody.
So with the loss of D'Angelo Harrison, this might be one of the best picks in the first 3 rounds because he's going to step into that role. And I don't know who's familiar with him. He is a former Armored athlete, so I did have that background knowledge on that. But I watched a lot of his games in France this year. He was teammates with a man, Ron March, who was on his team as well for autism. And he's capable of being one of the best guards. And that team, I think, they're my pick to come out of that region. I think they can make a deep run. They were shocked last year when they kept winning. Everyone was betting against them, and now I think they put everyone on notice that they're here to stay in TBT.
Definitely. I would agree with all that, including being my pick to win the region. Okay, Wall went with Kyler Edwards. Charge, what do you think about this pick here?
Yeah, if you believe in the Air Raiders, then, I mean, phenomenal pick. And like I said, the consensus, just based on the number of players drawn through there, obviously had a nice G League season last year. And he'll, like I said, a little bit of the same thing we talked about Boeheims. There's a lot of guys on here when you look at Roberson, Matt Mooney, Kyler Edwards. I mean, there's a lot of guys that could do a lot of things. So if he's the hot hand and gets in the right part of the rotation and gets the ball, then great pick here because I truly do think Air Raiders will advance out of Lubbock after the recent happening. So,
that makes one of us.
Well.
That makes
Yeah,
one
you're
of
still
us.
down on them.
I'm not down on them. I just think that they're going to get got.
Well, if they're not going to get out of the region, you're down on them. So much.
Okay,
So.
okay. Fair enough. Last pick of the first 3 rounds, Aubrey Dawkins, Friday Beers. That's your player, Vinny. So what do you think? Good pick?
Leading scorer last year. He averaged about 20 points for us, I believe. And this year, I think now that we have talent that is spread out, he won't be asked to do as much per se offensively, which might actually open up more for him in a sense. So I like it.
Definitely. So again, going to those rounds, charge. Anybody feels like a reach?
No, I don't think there's too many reaches
Okay.
here. I do agree with Vinny on the Dawkins. Is just the team's upgraded so much. So I don't know where Vinny was trying to steer that, but I think Dawkins will get less fantasy points this season than he did last year. So if I was forced into saying one, I would take Dawkins on this one. But the thing is obviously. Brian truly believes they're going to go. Well, Dotson's already a bust, but we have to assume he was playing. So obviously, Dotson's the worst pick of this round, no doubt.
Well, I mean, but I'm with you. He's a great player. So what are you supposed to do with that?
But if Beers plays 6 games, and it's a steal here. So that's what makes this game so tough. Is who's truly going to get through some of these really, really tough brackets.
And Beers' ceiling is 6 games. They very well could get to Philly. It could happen. Okay, so that was the 3 rounds. Now, what's interesting is we actually do have full rosters. I'll throw them all up on the screen. So we went 15 picks. And to be clear, some of them have been subbed out already because of the fact that there have been some moves made. So this is the as drafted. There's been, again, good time to mention TBT rosters always been a flux. There's Summer League, there's China, there's agents. People do withdraw for the best of reasons. Charge, anybody that you're looking at that we got incredible value? I mean, I'm looking at this. I'm seeing, for example, where did I see? Rob Gray at 8 feels really good to me. I like that a lot. You got to feel Casper Ware at 13 feels pretty good, doesn't it, Charge?
Yeah, well, on my team specifically, I don't recall everyone's roster. Casper Ware got grabbed, someone other than me, but I think my draft, aside from the Mass Street guys, went fairly well. I truly think Darrell Willis is going to be the go-to guy. He's going to outscore Frank Camp from a fantasy perspective, so I thought that was a great pick. Bleak Green's going to be solid, play at least 3 games with Stevens. I think McCall is going to go to the finals with Boeheim's Army, and then you mentioned Rob Gray. DJ Cooper, Everline sneaks by Jackson. I think that's a huge pick. I mean, Heartfire had, I think, 7 guys drafted, but none of them very early, so Griffin was a steal there. But yeah, I just think a well-rounded team. I didn't go too heavy into one team versus another. I tried to steer away from those 50-50 games. So, some of my guys are not as name-worthy as the sideline guys or the ALS guys, but I think a deep team and overall going to be there in the finals. And I had to give my guy Garrett some love on the Stanley Whitaker pick, and so Fort Wayne will take down the Buccaneers, and they will take down Armored Athlete. But the story of my team is going to be in the lab. If they can scooch out 3 games, and it's going to look genius. So that's the story.
Yeah, that's indeed the story in the meth lab. Gotcha. Ty, I really like some moves you made. You're going all in on ALS because the Clanton pick looks really good to me. Boyton, you obviously have basically taken, you're going to go, your ALS TNT or bust at this point. If O'Quinn shows up and if somebody Weens actually plays, this is a very intriguing roster. I like a lot of that. Vinny, I mean, looking at this, Jacobin Brown actually can hit shots. I think the autism is going to go deep. Bamford's a steal. I know Tyler Stone may already be out, so that might be a bit of an issue. Pretty nice little roster. Looking at Luke's, John Gillian, that seems like a kind of early pick. Do you think he's going to be really that solid? I'm kind of curious about that one.
Yeah, I love the Heartfire team. I got Solomon, and then I picked up Putney too because a couple guys dropped out. So I was in on Heartfire. I think they're going to make another deep run. And looking at their roster, they got a ton of good big guys like they always do. I think Hall may have been picked before I drafted there. I probably still would have taken Gillen. I think, Hall is in his 40s. Davin White's in his 40s. Mm-hmm. So I think Gillen's going to be the youngest guard who's going to be making shots. And I think that they're, especially with Mass Street losing some guys, I would say their floor right now is at least 3 games. I'm hoping they play 4 or 5. So I think he's going to be good. And he's played well for Boeheim's Army before, too. He obviously can make shots.
Yes. I mean, Bo Hodges at 7. I've already been told that he's going to have a major role on the Buccaneers, that they can get past a couple of games. They have to get past a couple of games first. And I'm just shocked. I'll leave you guys with this. I don't see Jeremiah Martin on anybody's roster, which I find shocking. I mean, the lack of Memphis players late even. Were there any Memphis players taken?
Walt
I
took
don't believe
Jeremiah.
so.
Walt took who?
Walt took Martin.
Oh, we took Martin at 12. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, because he's going to put up points. The question is if he can survive even past one round.
Antonius Cleveland's on Jacob's roster.
Yeah, but I don't know if is he still showing up? I think he's one of those guys that's kind of in doubt. I don't know. Here's hoping. Okay, any final thoughts, guys?
I just wanted to add one thing just to show how difficult this is. If you just look at who people drafted in the 9th round, DJ Cooper, Greg Whittington, Trevon Blewett, JB McCura, Mike Scott. That's a EuroLeague team. A lot this is like the talent that's in this tournament is ridiculous.
That's
a good call. It is insane.
Fletcher McGee, like that's the 9th round.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. It's an absolute insane draft.
But
okay, guys.
Hey, Hainer, to answer your question, obviously the Beale Street guys, but we had 21 teams not get a player drafted, which
really
is kind of crazy because it just obviously you need to push teams through the second round. But I think nothing overly surprising. But the Zoo Crew, obviously everyone's watching that one. I think they were a tough team, more ready. Gatorverse didn't have a single person drafted. Big Five, so it's it's interesting. We'll share some more of this after the show is aired. But it was a tough draft and so deep this year, having 10 teams.
Now, this will be one we put a few less videos out. It's kind of hard to do, but we'll do screenshots for the promos. So if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it on Spotify or your podcast networks, you definitely should follow the Twitter account, follow the YouTube, all those sort of things, so you can see the graphics go along with the draft. Vinny, Luke, Ty, and Charge, thanks for coming by. This is a really fun fantasy draft. And obviously, Charge will be updating this on Twitter more than I will, so I'm doing the other updates. But if you want your fantasy updates, definitely follow at Charge Nation. If you want your general TBT updates, follow him at Andrew D. Hainer, and of course, our podcast at ZoomTheTBT. And gentlemen, this is Charge and Hainer with our guests signing off.
Hope you enjoyed listening to Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hainer. Subscribe to YouTube, follow on Twitter, and give us your money.